Hello, fellow Italian language students! Welcome back to my channel Genius Speaking, where you can learn Italian language for free and having a lot of fun. In today's lesson, I want to start with a brief text in order to check your level of comprehension. It is easy enough. I will ask some questions about the very text, and I will bonus up this very video with a tiny grammar lesson. With no further ado, let's get started. The text is the following. Io mi chiamo Jack e lavoro a Milano. Ogni mattina la mia sveglia suona. Alle 7 mi alzo, mi lavo la faccia, poi indosso i vestiti e vado in cucina. Preparo il caffè e un bicchiere di succo d'arancia. Mangio velocemente 2 biscotti e guardo le notizie al telegiornale. Alle 8 meno un quarto vado al lavoro. Now, before the legit translation, I want to just ask you some questions. First one, a che ora si sveglia Jack? Alle 7, alle ore 7. Cosa beve per colazione? Per colazione beve caffè e un bicchiere di succo d'arancia. Cosa fa mentre guarda le notizie al telegiornale? Mangia 2 biscotti. Quando va al lavoro? Alle 8 meno un quarto. So, to make sure you've grasped all the concepts, I will briefly translate that in English. My name is Jack and I work in Milan. Every morning, my alarm clock rings at 7 a.m. I wake up, I wash my face. After, I wear my clothes and I go to the kitchen. I make coffee and a glass of orange juice. I eat quickly 2 biscuits while I'm watching news in TV. At 7:45, I go to work. Well, kudos for you if you answered correctly to the questions. You're really good as beginner and intermediate Italian language speaker. However, I want you to notice 2 things. First one, I've used only verbs belonging to the first conjugation. So I link here the video about how to deal with first conjugation in Italian language, conjugation about verbs. However, if you notice, every single verb is a verb that belongs to the first conjugation. So its infinitive mood ends by are. Mi chiamo, I'm called. Chiamare, to call. Lavoro, lavorare, to work. Suona, suonare, to ring. Alzo comes from alzare, to rise, wake up. Lavo, lavare, to wash. Indosso, indossare, to wear. Vado is for andare, to go. Preparo, to prepare. Preparare. Mangio is for mangiare, to eat. Guardo, guardare, to watch. Vado, again, is for andare, to go. Every single verb is kind of regular, so follows the pattern I taught you in the video. However, remember the only irregular verb is andare, because when conjugated often goes with vad, vado, vai, va, and etc. Second thing, probably you noticed some weird grammar construction. Mi chiamo, mi alzo, mi lavo. Those stands for I call myself, I've been called. I wake up myself. I wash myself. So those verbs, those actions are written in reflexive mode. A verb is reflexive when the action performed by the subject falls back to the subject itself. In other words, the subject performs the action of themselves. The reflexive form is built by using a reflexive pronoun, which is always placed before the very verb. Mi stands for me, I. Ti, you. Si is for he, she, it. Ci, we. Vi, you, plural. Si for they. Let's take a very common example. Verb I've listed before. Alzare, to wake up. Alzare literally means to lift something, but it is also used to mean that I'm waking up in the morning. So in indicative mood, simple present, the conjugation will be the following. Io mi alzo, I wake up myself. Tu ti alzi, you wake up yourself. Lui, lei, si alza. He, she wakes up themselves. Noi ci alziamo, we wake up ourselves. Voi vi alzate, you wake up yourselves. Loro si alzano, they wake up themselves. Of course, when we form compound tenses as passato, tense, or other moods that want the auxiliary verb, for the reflexive form, the auxiliary verb will always be essere, to be io mi sono alzato, tu ti sei alzato, lui, lei si è alzato, noi ci siamo alzati, voi vi siete alzati, loro si sono alzati. That is the conjugation for the past. Another important rule is that gender and number must agree to respect the principle of concordance. Io mi sono alzato, or because I'm male. If I would be female, io mi sono alzata, feminine. So remember, the gender needs to change based by the gender of the subjects. Number, of course, changes by the different personas and the different reflexive pronouns. But how we can possibly know if it's correct to use reflexive form or not? Well, first and foremost, there will be verbs and contexts when it will be pretty clear and it is pretty mandatory to use reflexive forms. For instance, verbs like svegliare, svegliarsi, is synonymous to alzare, wake up in the morning, vestire, pettinare, sentire, and chiamare. Those are pretty common examples of verbs that often trigger reflexive form because are actions that we often perform on ourselves. Vestire, to wear something, but if I am the person that wears himself, I need to use the reflexive form. Io mi vesto, I'm dressing myself. Pettinarsi, to comb hair. Io pettino tu, I comb your hair. But if I would have said io pettino me, io mi pettino. Often the verb chiamare, io mi chiamo Jack, that's my name. Often we would introduce ourselves telling our names, and the verb chiamare will be our first choice. But remember, its reflexive form is mandatory if I'm telling to my interlocutor how I am called. Ladies and gentlemen, class is dismissed. I hope you enjoyed this very lesson. If that happened, please hit the like button, subscribe. Here you can find my playlist of other videos I made about Italian language. And in the meantime, you're studying Italian. Remember, speak like a genius. Bye bye.